Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of session 19 of Pre-Socratics to Augustine, also called History of Philosophy 1. We are still talking about the beginning of Aristotle's metaphysics, and specifically, we are talking now about chapters 1 to 3 of Metaphysics Alpha. We already saw that Aristotle offers a kind of scale of cognitive achievements, starting with sense perception. Next higher is memory, then experience, then expertise. And then there is the idea that there is a range of kinds of expertises. Some are higher, some are lower. And an expertise or even science is the higher, the more it is concerned with what Aristotle calls the why, or why questions. And when we talked about Plato, we were using this expression, what is X questions and how questions? And so now here we have a further such expression, why questions. That is a kind of terminological notion also in the scholarship on Aristotle. The thought is that Aristotle thinks that an understanding of, and now here are again technical terms, the first causes and principles. And that is an understanding in response to why questions. That offers the deepest and most fundamental understanding of the world. So that is one way of saying how he conceives of metaphysics. Metaphysics is a term that literally simply means those are the writings from Aristotle that come after the physics. And it is a term that people introduce simply for kind of ordering books in a library. So it's not in itself a word that has kind of a literal meaning that somehow discloses what metaphysics really is. And one way of thinking about what metaphysics is in Aristotle is to say, well, it is a science of first causes and first principles, because the thought is that what we would have if we had the deepest kind of understanding of reality, it would be knowledge of that, of the first causes and principles. And the idea is that if you had that, all the other knowledge somehow depends on that. Now, Aristotle tries to make this plausible in a number of ways in Metaphysics Alpha. And one of the ways in which he does that is to go through endoxic notions of wisdom, meaning notions of wisdom that relate to endoxa, which we discussed when we looked at the topics, beliefs or opinions that somehow have the kind of standing that makes them worthy for us to consider them. And at the time, we saw that one option for that is that pretty much everyone holds a given view. So now we have in Metaphysics Alpha a list of views that, according to Aristotle, pretty much all of us hold about wisdom. When we talk about wisdom, what is it that we think the wise person can do or has achieved? And roughly, I'm not going to go through this list now, but several items on the list refer to the idea that the wise person knows higher kinds of entities, knows more universal things, and knows the why, principles, and causes, and is hence also a good teacher because she can explain why things are the way they are. Now, I just used a word that may be Aristotle's coinage, universal, and I want to just quickly introduce this term. The idea is that when you understand the why, and when you are concerned with the why, with principles and causes, then you are concerned not with particular individual items in the world, but you are concerned with general things that apply to a whole set of items. And the term that Aristotle uses is katholu, and literally that means of the whole. So when you're talking universally, you're talking of the whole domain of something. You say human beings are such and such, then you're talking universally about human beings. You're talking about human beings as a whole, as opposed to talking about Socrates or Callias or some other particular human being. So that is this bit of terminology that one needs in order to study Aristotle. Particulars are these individual items versus to talk universally is to talk of the whole of some group or set or kind of thing. Now, once Aristotle has made that point, that the higher some kind of knowledge or expertise is, the more it is concerned with the why and the more it is universal. That is a comparative notion. It's not as if something is either entirely universal or not at all, but kinds of expertise can be more or less universal. So the more some kind of expertise, some kind of science is concerned with causes and principles, the more it is universal or concerned with universal insights. And then, of course, there is the question, well, what are these causes and principles? And Aristotle says, well, I have already discussed that in the physics, but he gives us a super short summary. And we will spend a lot of time next time to talk in more detail about the four causes that Aristotle distinguishes. Right now, I just want to give you a minimal list and then explain today's homework assignment. The minimal list is that there is the formal cause, which is the what it is of something or the substance of something, that which makes a thing that which it is. Then there is the material cause, the constituents out of which something consists. Then there is the so-called efficient cause, which sets things in motion. And then there is the so-called final cause. And that is the for the sake of which things are the way they are. Now, your assignment is to just think a little bit about the initial characterization of the formal cause and the final cause and ask yourself in which sense they relate to the way in which Plato talks about the form of the good.